Hello, and welcome to Healthcare IT Today, where we explore the latest healthcare technology trends and discover valuable insights in health IT. I'm Colin Hung, and I recently had the chance to sit down with Duncan Weatherston, CEO of Smile CDR, a Canadian company that has made a big bet on the FHIR standard and has grown quickly from just 5 people to over 250 in just a few years. Let's roll the recording.
Smile CDR is a data platform that's designed to help people and businesses get into the internet economy in healthcare. It's designed to allow providers and payers and other health participants to store information, share that information, and really take advantage of modern APIs when interacting with each other.
So who are your customers? What kind of people use your platform?
We're very fortunate to have some very large forward-thinking customers. We have clients like Change Healthcare, Highmark, Centene, LabCorp, Health Sciences, South Carolina, Healthcare Services Corporation, HCSC. We have clients in Canada, like the Government of Canada. We're in 17 countries. We've got clients, kind of globally, who are kind of a who's who of healthcare in both payers and providers.
And what is it that they're hiring you to do? What's the problem that they're trying to solve by bringing on a solution like yours?
So I think it's in everybody's mind's eye that they need to be able to use information more effectively. And the historical tools that are available to healthcare organizations to manage and use their information are limiting. And so they use us as a platform to store information, to process it, to share it, to react to it, to use event-driven interactions. They use us basically as a tool, which is going to enable them to use their information in ways that are more aligned with modern information practices.
So how do you differentiate, or how do you complement a classic interoperability tool like the Redoxes of the world and others that are in that sort of space? Are you the same as them? Are you different than them?
Yeah, we're different than them. We actually work with them, right? For example, Redox, as you mentioned, we view them as a fantastic partner and ally, because what they do is they provide the ability to reach into a variety of technologies and present, components that are usable in building applications. And what we provide is a component they can reach into and present information that's useful. Ultimately, though, when we are successful, you won't have to have a different tool for each environment, right? Every application will support an open standard and the ability to get at that data. And so a company like Redox will actually have a set of capabilities that allow you to take advantage of the myriad of systems in your environment and then present common applications that are able to sort of be developed rapidly and effectively. So we work very closely with them. I've got a high opinion of Redox.
Good. Oh, great. That's awesome. Can you give me an example of something specific in terms of the way you would work with data with your clients, and as opposed to something that an interoperability tool or a classic, as you put it, moving from point A to point B tool would do?
Sure. So if you think about the goal is to have information available in an open standard format. So most of our clients will put their data into our database as a destination. In our database, we have the ability to both do processing on the way in or on the way out, to augment or to normalize the data. We have things like MDM and capabilities to deal with deduplication. We have consent. We have a whole bunch of tools that make that information interaction possible in the modern context. And so it's that pattern of having a data store that is fully focused on being open standards compliant, that being transparent. Our data liberation strategy more or less means that we believe that the client owns the information and should have full visibility into it. And so they use us in that form, right? They use us basically as a place where they can put their data, be able to interact with it using modern standards, and then have a whole bunch of cool tools that enable them to achieve kind of application outcomes they want.
And what's the growth been for the company? I mean, it sounds like you've got this wonderful tool. What's that sort of vector of growth been for you?
It's been pretty incredible. We started with 5 of us in 2016. We were bootstrapped, so we did it on our own backs. In 5 years, we grew it from 5 people to 250. from a local sort of idea to a platform that's used in some of the largest companies on the planet. We've got a lot of momentum in terms of support from our clients, in terms of support from investors. We recently went for a round and raised 20 million, and it was remarkably pleasant experience. So, given what I'd heard previously about raising money from others, I was anticipating something too much worse. So the people we worked with are fantastic, and the outcomes are also equivalently fantastic.
So just on that note, I was going to ask you about the funding. So you got 20 million in a round of funding. Where's that going to be used, and how's that going to be deployed?
So the way we were successful, I describe it often as having a fishing boat, taking it out and having the fish jump into your boat. We were small, we didn't have a big marketing budget, and we were very fortunate that we had these fantastic clients who kind of had the vision and understood what we were trying to get to. But I don't think that's a persistent business model, right? I mean, you really ought to be fishing if you've got a fishing boat. And so we're going to be using some of our money to build out our sales and marketing teams further and to be more aggressive in our approach in that sense. We're going to be using some of our money to be able to also extend our support. One of the challenges with this type of business is that it is a solution business. And so when you're doing implementations, you have to be able to keep up with the demands of your clients. And we've got very big clients. And so obviously adding to our support base is good. And the other piece is we're using it as part of the mechanism for us to sort of rebuild the way that we're interacting. So we've got some really great partnerships coming down the pipe with some very large integration companies. And so we're basically, this has given us this sort of ability to retool and reposition ourselves for success. Given the type of growth we had, 300 to 500% year over year, every year for the past 5 years, we've been constantly chasing our tails a bit, and getting some money and allows us to sort of focus and go forward.
So you've obviously got a base in Canada, you're successful in the United States. International expansion, is that something?
We've got clients in Australia, New Zealand, South America, Europe. We're doing some work in Asia now. One of our targets, like I was saying earlier on, is the idea that you can take success in developed nations and parlay it into technologies that are sustainable in developing nations. And so with that in mind, we're really looking to work in Africa, Asia, South America in ways that are sustainable, both with LMICs and other developing nations.
Interesting. Okay. Because you're based in Canada, I got to ask you this question. What's your feeling on the state of healthcare innovation in Canada? And I asked that question with the context of most people think it's a backwater of innovation in healthcare.
But I don't think so. I think if you look at what happened, Canada really invested money in building out healthcare innovation. They threw money through InfoWay and a few other channels. And consequently, there were a lot of small businesses that got exposure to ideas that would probably not normally have been at the forefront. And so it's not just us. If you look around, there's a whole bunch of Canadian companies that have come up with interesting patterns. Point Click Care is a good example of that. And others. And so I think Canadians have had a chance to really sort of hone their skills in sort of that environment and then be able to exploit them. And when I travel abroad, people are always saying it's really weird how many people from Canada are out doing healthcare things internationally. I guess we had a bit of a creative burst as a consequence.
Is there anything that you feel that we could do better to encourage more innovation, more companies to start like Smile CDR in the future?
Yeah, so I think one of the challenges, of course, is that the approach that Canadians have to our purchasing of technologies is that we look to America as the leadership. The one thing I've always said to everybody is the reason why we're finally being successful in Canada is because we got successful elsewhere, right? We initially sold almost nothing in Canada. We did great abroad. I went to Duke University for my first presentation. Our first client was in the Netherlands. Our next 3 clients were in the US. We were very lucky. We got a great interaction with the government of Canada. They had something called the Built in Canada program, and we got a chance to work with Health Canada. That was very effective in giving us a boost. But in general, we got success in Canada after we got success abroad.
That seems to be the pattern for most companies like Point Click Care and others, where success at the home in Canada comes secondary to success in another market.
Yeah, I think that's a Canadian perspective, right? We view stuff made in Canada as somehow second tier, or like farm league, and it's only when it's done in the big leagues that we're like, oh hey, we competed in the big leagues. But I think that's just a Canadian character.
Are you seeing an acceleration of the adoption of the FHIR standard finally,
Yeah.
or is it still sort of the slow plodding pace of the adoption that we've seen with the other standards?
No, so I'd say FHIR has been taking off. One of the things, there was a very well thought out approach taken by the ONC. They were looking to drive EHRs in an environment where adoption has been relatively challenging. And so they came up with this brilliant idea that if they get the payers to provide patients with access to their health records, then you'll get, because the payers had all the data, you'll get the data in the hands of the patients and they can make decisions about it. And because they were being farsighted, they chose FHIR, and so they put pressure on it. It's really pumped up the level of anticipation and adoption of FHIR. But even before they did that, we were starting to see the trend sort of trend upward. So this is more of the same. But FHIR, if you talk to anybody in the healthcare industry who's associated with the technology space, what we've heard is it's not if they're going to FHIR, it's when they're going to FHIR. And that pressure has been building and building. So it's definitely going to be a consistent drumbeat for the next 5 years until it's yesterday's news, because everybody's already on FHIR.
So do you feel that the info blocking rule in the US has really pushed more people towards adopting FHIR sooner then?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think just the fact that they've acknowledged that this standard is important has been enough to get people thinking about it and being aggressive. And like I said, because it's so transformative, the character of FHIR is a 21st century implementation. It's not just moving data from place to place. It's an API that allows you to query the data. It's a data model that allows you to understand what the information is going to be, but in a way that's published publicly so that everybody can have access to it, and maintained publicly so that everybody can feed into what data records should be there. I love the way that they've done the maturity model. I'm a huge fan of what FHIR has done in terms of the structure that's proposed. I'm a huge fan of the idea of implementation guides. I'm astonished and in awe of the work done by all of the communities like Da Vinci and others who are building these things out for all of us to use. It is absolutely transformative. I think it's going to take healthcare out of the doldrums and into the exciting future that's available to us. And there's a lot to change and a lot to improve. And all I have to do is look at the costs of the system to see that anything which you improve, it was marginal changes, can provide huge financial benefit.
Where can people find out more information about Smile CDR? Where would you point them?
I'd point them to our website. You can come to www.smilecdr.com, and we've got all of the information there. I'd certainly point people to go look at HL7 FHIR's websites, because that gives you all of the really credible information about why I'm such a fan of these open standards and the approaches. And I'd look at some of the sites like Da Vinci and Blue Button for more the caring lens.
I want to thank Duncan Weatherston, CEO of Smile CDR, for sitting down with me to tell us more about the company and the work that they're doing. If you enjoyed this interview as much as I did, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you're listening and watching this. Also, head over to healthcareittoday.com, where you can get access to free resources, industry news, and insightful articles. You can also connect with us on Twitter using the hashtag HITSM. I'm Colin Hung. Thanks for being here.